Alright, so this is the second part to a video I didn't realize was going to have a second part. We were talking about head spacing, and so I did a little demonstration, showed you how I personally determine head spacing, and what do we have in front of us? Well, it's the VZ2008 from that video. I've removed all the internals and pressed out the barrel set pin, pressed the barrel in and out, adjusted head spacing. I'm real happy with it. Now I'm going to machine this out, put in the old barrel set pin, reassemble the rifle, and have 100% confidence in it. But I just thought, like, why not show people it in action? So, first I'm going to begin with how I got the barrel set pin out. What I did was, and I suspect the old one here is stainless because it work hardened real quickly. Classically, what I do is I drill it out till there's nothing left and punch out the remainder. Wasn't able to do that this time, so instead I punched out, I used a little punch, and then I drilled a little divot in it, and while holding a smaller pin carefully with a pair of pliers, I pressed out the larger pin. Now, it took an incredible amount of pressure, and the reason I'm telling you any of this is because I found the little divot in there instrumental. It kept the smaller pin from slipping as it pushed through. It's great. Worked great. Alright, so moving on. Barrel gets pressed out. I actually added a little bit of metal to the end, so there'll be some forgiveness there. I cleaned that up and pushed the barrel in a little bit, making sure there's like a piston stop in here that's shaped kind of like a crescent, modified crescent moon. You make sure that that's held in place with some heavy grease so it can't move. I pressed the barrel in maybe like ½ an inch, and then what I did is I took a crescent wrench and two pairs of leather gloves, or excuse me, two leather gloves. I put one, I wrapped it around the front sight. You take the crescent wrench, slide that up over it. Then the rear, the receiver, that goes in a vise with a leather glove around it. And then eyeballing it, I twist the crescent wrench one direction or another until I had it reasonably lined up. You do the remaining amount with just the windage adjustment on the front sight. What you're looking for primarily is getting the gas block lined up, which is harder to do, so you make sure you have it right before you put your barrel set pin back in again. And the way you can check to see if it's close enough to work is you don't want the piston to bind at all. You want it to move real easy. You can spin it. It shouldn't bind up at all and work great. Okay? That's more important than the front sight, because the front sight can be pressed off and redone, or you just adjust the windage. Okay, so the way I described getting your headspace set up just right without gauges, I will now demonstrate. So early on when I'm pressing the barrel in, I've made a set of tools, and you can make your own, that slide right in here, and these help with pressing the barrel out as well. Alright, and so I probably get it real close to where I want it using these, among other tools. And then when I get close, I reassemble. This is a complete bolt assembly. I reassemble the rifle just enough to recreate what it would be like if it was in battery and ready to fire. So the dust cover with spring assembly goes back in. Alright? And at this point, I usually flip the rifle over and I start pressing on the rear very carefully. Something I forgot to mention is that I oil up the receiver and the barrel, and that significantly reduces the pressure needed to press the barrel in and out, and it allows you greater control. So now what happens is everything gets pressed together and the barrel ends up really tight against the bolt face. So tight, in fact, that it's not possible to push it back. And so you can take like a rubber mallet or anything that's heavy with some insulation on it. Like you could literally take these shears and just tap on it till it breaks free. At which point you then remove the dust cover, springs, and bolt carrier assembly. This is what you're left with. Then I take this tool that I made, obviously, it goes back in. I've got this nice little cutout piece of metal here, 1/8 inch, a little bent, but it works just fine. It goes in, and then to produce the right amount of head spacing, well, I suspect that's going to be, I don't suspect, I know that can be different for each rifle. In this case, I used a paper shim. This is a piece of paper I tore and then cut up from an 8.5 by 11 piece of printer paper. Alright? Just a piece of paper. Paper doesn't really compress. So this is perfect, and it's just so beautiful. If I had used a metal shim this thin, I don't know where I would have got one, and it would be easily destroyed and not stay accurate. Okay, so then when it's time to press the barrel back out again, because right now, you know, in theory, you know, along the process here, the bolt won't lock up, or if it does, it's way too tight. Okay, so we pulled that all out. We've got my metal tool here and my metal shim, and then I add this little piece of paper, folded in half, right in there, and I put pressure on the back side of the barrel here with my press. Boom! It moves a little bit forward, and you have to check your head spacing. So this is what I'm left with. And you go, okay, well, where are we at? Well, take a look. So we put the bolt carrier back in it, locks up great, travels all the way forward. And I described how you can use a piece of electrical tape, put it over the rear of the barrel here, and watch what happens. That is 3/8 of an inch away from locking up, and if I press real hard, I can get it down to 1/8 of an inch, but it refuses to lock up. And it's tight. But if I remove it, just one piece of electrical tape, locks up just fine. And I can demonstrate that with the piece of paper as well. The thing is that with the press always presses it too much one direction or another, so you always go smaller than what you need, because you know that the press is going to move it more than what you need. If that makes any sense. Piece of paper in there. Hope you can see all that. And look at that. 3/8 of an inch away, and it won't close up. If I press real hard, I can get it down to 1/8 of an inch, but she won't close. And that is properly adjusted head spacing without gauges on a VZ58.